Three, two, one. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from here. This beer presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic, special edition Sunday evening show. It is one of the best times of the year. It all just got wrapped up in Indianapolis, where Florida State had a dominating and really impressive showing at the NFL Combine, as expected. We were previewing this all throughout the last couple of months, it feels like, after the season ended, but expected some freaks from Florida State to show out, and show out they did. And a lot of chatter, a lot of discussion, NFL stars reacting to it. We even had Patrick Mahomes reacting to Braden Fiske's 40-yard dash. So Florida State was talked about everywhere, which was obviously a great time for the fan base to also get a little bit more triggered about what happened and them not getting an opportunity in the college football playoff. But that's all we're going to spend the night on, is all on the NFL Combine. All three of us on here are really big fans of it nonetheless. And just to have this amount of FSU players there and the caliber of those players, it was super fun to cover the last 4 days. But with me this evening is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer at the top. And down below is our editor-in-chief, D-Lou, Dustin Lewis. Gentlemen, happy Sunday. And we're not used to doing a little Sunday show like this. How we doing?
Doing good, yeah. It's a little weird hopping on here on Sunday, but I think it's fitting after the last couple of days and what we've seen in Indianapolis to hop on here and showcase some of these guys that really improved their draft stock over the last couple of days, and some Seminoles that showed that freak athleticism that we saw at times during the 2023 season.
The NFL Combine's always a fun time. The sports nerds in us come out. We're all reacting to some of these clips, and there was definitely some clips out there where everyone's going, oh, okay, I see what Florida State's talking about down there. So it was good to see some positive momentum around Florida State again. It was good to see Coach Norvell on Twitter involved with all these clips as well. Just a fun weekend overall for almost every prospect.
It's fun for you and me too, Veazey, because we're also looking at this for what we think are going to be some guys we're adding to our team.
Yep.
For you in Minnesota, Pittsburgh for me, but just to see nonetheless these FSU guys do what they do, because Dustin, we got to see a lot of these guys early on in practices when they arrived and transferred, like Johnny Wilson. People were like wondering, how fast can that guy really be, and what is his range? And we got to see him firsthand, and he's a freak athlete. And then all the fans get to see him out there in games, so you see that. But then whenever you're just defined on an NFL scouting combine like this, where they're tracking everything imaginable, your drills, your 40, your vert, everything imaginable, and you get to see these guys perform, it's super fun to see it on this kind of layer, honestly.
Yeah, I think getting to see it like this, like we see it in practice all the time, like you said, Johnny Wilson, but Jared Verse, Trey Benson, but then to put them on a stage like this and get to see them test against their peers and, see those opinions reflected at the NFL Combine, it's been a pretty cool couple of days with, how well some of these guys have really performed.
We can kind of just start. I was going to say in chronological order. Before we get going, though, as always, you can listen to podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, smack that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to over there on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so you get notified every time we release a new episode. This week, we're going to specifically be having 2 episodes for you guys. So we're recording now on Sunday evening, and then we're going to have another one on Wednesday, and we're going to be previewing into some spring camp stuff as well, along with having one of these guys here that had a really good showing on as a guest with us on Wednesday evening that I think a lot of FSU fans will be excited to hear from him. But that one's going to be a good one. So make sure you're notified, make sure you're subscribed, so then you don't miss out on that interview that we have on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Well, let's get started. Let's start off with number one. When we go back to Thursday and look at a few of these guys, and we'll kind of integrate to some interviews because we had a lot of good interviews from all of these Noles. But just on the field, though, to start off with, I thought we'd go jump right over to Braden Fiske and his performance that he put together and in front of the country. He was having a lot of buzz. He gained a lot of buzz there near the latter half of that 2023 season. What he did with Florida against Florida, and then obviously his performance in Charlotte in that ACC championship. But he had chatter from scouts, Senior Bowl too. He had a great showing there. But whenever you run a time that he did in Indianapolis for his size, it's going to garner a lot of attention. For Braden Fiske, a 4.78 40. Did y'all have any kind of projections of that to be the case for this guy? Because I don't think we even asked him about it whenever we had the interview a couple weeks ago.
I think I texted you before he ran. I said something like 4.75, and I mean he was a hair off there at the end.
Yeah.
But we knew Braden Fiske has some speed. I mean, we saw him throughout practice. Always racing Mike Norvell throughout the season, chasing guys down. You look back at that Senior Bowl game as well. There was a play where he was able to chase a receiver down on the outside after starting at that defensive tackle position. So I mean, he's someone that does have that athleticism. And also just, that hustle and the effort that he puts in every play. But, I mean, then to go out there and run a 4.78 at the combine at 292 pounds and finish at number one among the defensive tackles in the 40-yard dash, I mean, that puts it at a whole nother level.
So he wasn't only just number one for defensive tackles, he was fifth ever for defensive tackles in 40-yard dash at 4.78. We all expected him to be quick because you saw it on tape, especially in that Louisville game. I didn't see that quick, to be honest with you. But he was not only in the 40-yard dash, but even in drills. There's that one clip flying around where he's coming off the edge of one of the tackle dummies, and the coach behind him was like, "Oh my God, he's fast." But he was just athletic as all get out, all event. I mean, it wasn't just this. He did well in the broad jump. He did well in the vertical. He probably wasn't as strong with the bench press as many people probably would have wanted. But I mean, 26 reps is fine. He was phenomenal. I don't think there's any former Nole at the combine that did more for their draft stock this weekend than Braden Fiske did.
I think for bench press, he makes up for it on film, which how he works with offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Like Austin said about the drills, I mean, did you guys see the bag drill? I don't know if we're able to pull that one up, but I mean, he just made it look stupid. It was the quickest bag drill that I've ever seen. And I mean, I don't know. It was just insane how quick he moved through that one. And then the next guy came up, and I mean, man, the way Braden dominated that drill, he made the next two or three guys in line just look absolutely awful.
They put it next to Aaron Donald's, and I think Fiske was just a hair quicker. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And speaking of that, I want to say his 3-cone was actually quicker than Aaron Donald's, which we all know Aaron Donald's arguably one of the fastest defensive linemen ever play. So anytime you're in that conversation, it's a good thing.
There we go. I've got it up on the screen here now. But this is Braden Fiske in the 4-bag drill.
He was just breezing through this. I've never seen a defensive lineman go this fast.
Just so great with his technique, tight in a good way. Jenkins going, but this is going with Aaron Donald here.
And obviously they've changed it up just a little bit since Donald was going through the combine. But I mean, you can just tell how quick of a feet Fiske has. And like I said, I don't think any player has done more for their draft stock than he has this weekend. He went from, by the end of the season, he was probably like a 4th, 5th round pick. Now, I don't even know if he gets 10 picks into the second round. He's just done so much for his draft stock.
It's insane. And I mean, you're hearing the NFL Network analysts all talk about Braden Fiske as this combine performance is going on. And I think it's Daniel Jeremiah not only has Fiske on his top 50, but now was talking about he might even be able to sneak into that first round scenario. And when we're talking about a guy who played 6 seasons at the college level and is sub 300 pounds, I mean, man, the rise that Fiske is on really just shows how special of a player and person he is.
I'm gonna pull up this 40 real quick. Let's take a look at this 40 from Braden Fiske, where he practically shocked, kind of just got the combine started. And that's being someone that just loves the combine no matter what. Definitely the 40-yard dash, but to see a 4-6 Seminole of this size and the speed was phenomenal. And a little bit of commentary too from Braden. We'll listen in here.
Nice. He's moving. 168.
Oh yeah.
Oh, 78.
I love the oh yeah.
I think he knew he did well. I think he said
knew.
Oh yeah as he crossed the finish, didn't he? Did I hear that properly?
That was strong.
Oh, he 100% knew.
Oh yeah. Let's hear it.
Great form, great start, good get off.
Oh yeah.
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 Nice.
Just a little bit of a Ryan Bartow nod right there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that might have been.
7.
Yeah, that might have
Hey,
been a
now,
little
I
right.
think he knew he did well.
Braden Fiske. But too, like, going back, you go back to like the Clemson game too, where Kalen popped and got that fumble recovery against Klubnik. Who's running stride on stride with him? It's Braden Fiske. Who's running against all the guys in practice against Mike Norvell? It's Braden Fiske. That there was no shocker that he had the athleticism, but just to see how hard he trained and did a great job in this combine, like you said, VZ, he's rocketed up on some draft boards, and there's some certain teams that might have some high interest in him. I think too, it would just be really rough to have him in black and gold up there in Pittsburgh. It would really, really be rough for me if that were to happen. So there's a lot of these guys that I think FSU just in black and gold would be really well. But we got a long ways to go in this combine recap. But giving some love from Max Crosby too. Got some love from Max Crosby. Cam Jordan, star of the New Orleans Saints, was recruiting him a little bit there. I don't know if tampering is real or not, but Max Crosby though showing some love. That Max Crosby is one of the most well-respected players in the league right now, defensively, as he should be. One of the best pass rushers right now. But to show some love from those two stars, that some veteran defensive linemen, really, really cool to see.
And I believe when Braden was on here, he even mentioned Max Crosby as someone that he looks up to. So I'm sure to get that appreciation was pretty cool for him. And, it just shows what he did to go out there and impress some of the NFL stars that are watching. Braden Fiske, he's going to go off the board a lot sooner than I think people were thinking a couple of months ago. And, he's got some more chances here at interviews and pro day to continue to boost his stock. But I think teams know at this point, you're not only getting someone who's a great player on the field, but you're also getting someone who's going to be a quality person in the locker room as well. And that's just as important.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for you, Logan, Minnesota picks about 9 picks before y'all in the second round. And good Lord, did the Vikings need interior defensive line help. If they can get a quarterback in the first round and Fiske in the second, that's a home run for me, to be honest. And I don't know if he makes it to 42.
Yeah,
Minnesota picks. There's so many teams in those late 20s and early 30s that want and need interior defensive line help, and someone that could push the pocket like Fiske does. Those don't come around very often. Now you're combining that with the athletic testing he had this weekend, where he's just off the charts at almost every single drill. A lot of teams are going to be on the board there early in the second round going, man, I don't think we can let this guy fall any further.
No. There's a video here. I love the comparisons where they go back from years ago or currently, and they showed here in a simulation of Braden Fiske versus Patrick Mahomes, and Braden Fiske beats him by 0.02 in the 40, and Patrick Mahomes was tweeting some stuff as well.
You've got Tavondre Sweat back there.
He's back there, yeah.
Which honestly, for his size, running 5'2" is kind of impressive.
Yeah. But yeah, to have the best player in all of football. Not that he was maybe showing him love, but he was a little embarrassed by Braden Fiske beating him with that 40 time, but hilarious stuff. Absolutely awesome, and got a lot of love. And I think the NFL broadcast was just basking over Fiske. So yeah, he's going to shoot up some boards, and really interested to see how quickly he goes, man. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah, it was Daniel Jeremiah who put him in his top 50 already before the NFL Combine, or am I thinking another?
Yeah. You're right. That's what I was talking about before. Like, he was already in that top 50, and now he's talking about potentially on the cusp of being a first-round pick.
Yeah. I mean, come on, man.
You can go to – there's NFL Mock Draft Database, which combines a whole bunch of big boards and mock drafts together, and right now he's the 59th ranked player. Wow. And I'm sure that's going to change a lot these next couple of days as people update these rankings after the Combine.
Mm-hmm. And he told us, too, he's not a big social media guy. He doesn't do all that kind of stuff and whatnot. And, I think him and just the way he presents himself, too. An older guy, too, a veteran guy in college football. And he represents himself well. He represented Florida State well in his 1 year at FSU. And, good stuff there from Braden Fiske. And it's going to be super fun. I mean, like, we're just gearing up for what is going to be a hell of a night when we go into that first round in April of the NFL draft. Some things could happen here with maybe a handful of Noles. We'll see. Let's go over to Jared Verse. who, like you were saying earlier, Dustin, when we first saw Jared Verse arrive in Tallahassee, we knew this was a different specimen. This guy is a different animal, and just to see this go up to Indy now and see it perform is super fun. But starting off with the 40 here, I'll bring it up here for you guys to watch on the stream. But here's Jared Verse in his actual second 40.
I didn't know that Jared Verse would run again. He must want to try and get down the 4.5s. I might have posted that 4.6 and been good.
Way better start.
There it is.
Every 100.
4.59
Hey,
for
now.
Jared Verse on his run.
I didn't know that
there
Jared Verse
of
would
the
run again.
40, and I was also a little shocked by him wanting to run a second one as well, but he must have had some times in the bank previously where he was training that he was in that sub 4.6 kind of range for him, and sure enough, he cleans it up a little bit, gets a little bit of a better start, and he looks good for that size too as well.
Yeah, unofficially coming in at a 4.58, tied for fourth among defensive ends. And, this was a chance for Verse to come in and really cement his first round status with some elite testing. And I think you saw that, with the 40, but you also go to that bench press, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Number one among defensive ends, 5 more reps than any other defensive end. I think he was number 2 if you add in the defensive tackles as well. So really showed off his strength. 35-inch vertical, 10-foot 7-inch broad jump, 7.31 second 3-cone, and a 4.44 second shuttle. So, he was just all over it, really showcased the speed and the athleticism, the ability to bend that you were able to see at Florida State. And I think now with what he was able to put out at the combine, you combine that with his projection or his production the last 2 years at Florida State and what he did at Albany, he really put himself in that range to, be that first to third defensive end off the board.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that 20-yard shuttle at 4.44. Combine that with 31 reps in the bench press. That's a damn good defensive end prospect or edge prospect, whatever people want to call him these days. And, we see the numbers right here compared to Will Anderson Jr., very comparable. I don't think there's any reason he'll be further than the second defensive player off the board, second or third if one of those corners ends up going high. But he did everything he needed to do to cement himself as a top, 15, 16 pick.
Yeah, his whole thing for this week was just to do what you can do. Like this guy was he already had enough film on it, but just to put a couple good numbers together and just solidify himself, like you said there, of cementing it. VZ
running in the 4.5s is crazy. Running the 4.5s is crazy. I said running the 4.5s is crazy for his size. I think he weighed in just a hair under 260, and at almost 6'4", 4.5 speed is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 254. He trimmed up a little bit from what he was playing at last year, which I like him trimmed up a little bit. I think he's better in the pass rush, but he's got that power too. That's what a lot of the scouts and everybody's looking at is what power he brings. But I think for some speed too, people forget about that, and it's because of the size, the numbers of his size right there: 6'3", 7'8", and then 254 pounds. Running a 4.58 is. It's wild, but it's funny too because Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, and also Jared Verse all throughout their careers have always had that chatter of who's faster. And we'll get to Trey Benson's number here, which is, it's going to be fun to talk about. But Jared Verse did allow Trey Benson to get that 40-yard win on him. But he did say, though, Jared did admit that he doesn't think Benson's faster than on the playing field, though, with pads on.
Hey, it's still a lot closer than I think some would think when you're thinking Verse at 254 and Benson came in at was it 214, something like that, 216. So about a 40-pound difference between the two, and you got Verse at 4.58 and Benson at 4.38. That's not too crazy, but
and he's faster than any player in Miami.
For the size, man.
I was waiting for the Miami shots to happen. Thank you, BZ.
They're coming. They're coming. There'll be more.
Were there Miami players at the combine?
Apparently, they didn't do too well.
They should have saved everything for the pro day down there in South Florida.
But Jared Verse, they were calculating the relative athletic score of every player throughout the weekend. And basically it's a score based on the athletic testing that compares players by position to their peers over previous drafts. And Jared Verse came in 78 out of 1,637 defensive ends from 1987 to 2024. So a really impressive showing at that combine. And that kind of takes into account not only the testing, but then also the measurements as well. And it just really shows the elite athlete that Jared Verse is.
Yeah, both too. Jared Verse talking to the media, and it was the theme of every FSU player. They're just giving a lot of love to Mike Norvell, the staff, strength and conditioning. They did a really good job of paying the respect back to Florida State and making that run to a lot of reporters asking about the college football playoff and stuff. And we'll talk about Jordan Travis here and giving a health update here in a minute. But a lot of guys giving a lot of love for what the program has put together there and what Mike Norvell has been able to do.
Yeah, I think the whole weekend was a Josh Storm showcase, and really speaks well to what Florida State does strength and conditioning wise throughout the offseason and into the season as well, because we've heard Mike Norvell talk about it. We've heard Josh Storms talk about it, but these guys don't leave the weight room once the season begins. They're lifting throughout the year, and I think that just speaks to the power that was really on display.
I did love seeing all the guys saying "built by Storms" with their own combine highlights. Just a good example of how established the culture is in Tallahassee now.
Yeah, and we've heard it from so many of these guys that have come on here and talked about him. The last rounds of interviews we've had, they give a ton of love to Coach Storms, and they still don't miss tour of duty whatsoever. But it polishes you up a little bit, and even Braden, Jarrian, their last couple of workouts before the combine said they're not as tough as what we had to go through, and it prepares you very well. And we've seen that just not only like this combine, but and games alone. Let's go over to Fabian Lovett. Fabian Lovett didn't do a lot of the testing here. Didn't do a 40. Didn't do
he didn't do
a lot
any
of the other testing really at all.
He really just did the on-field drills and the measurements.
Yep. He was just doing the drills on there. But thoughts on Fabo? There's some few things he probably might want to clean up, but other than that, for his size, I think too, him recovering still from that injury, just to see him out there being able to perform and do that kind of stuff on his leg was big for him. But a nice showing from Fabo too up there in Indy.
I think the important thing for him was the medicals, and that's obviously not something that we're going to be privy on, but teams getting a chance to really take a look at him and understand why he missed some time over the last 2 years, and hopefully that's not something that's going to hinder him as he makes that move to the professional level. But also coming in at 6'3", 7'8", and 314 pounds, had really good size out there. Up and down performance, I thought, in the drills, and it's going to be important going into pro day. He was talking about it when he was on here for his interview a couple weeks ago, that he's been training for that 40-yard dash and everything. I think coming out and having a solid showing at pro day is going to be really important for him.
Yeah, you could tell he was pretty stiff in some of those drills, like especially I don't know what to call, but the one where they lay down on the ground first and they have to jump up, he looked really stiff in that, slipped once or twice. You could tell he's getting over some leg injuries and hopefully has a little bit better showing at his pro day. I still think he's going to be like a 6th, 7th round kind of guy. I don't think anything's changed that.
Yeah. Next up, D-Lo. We're going linebacker here. Both him and Tatum Bethune performed here. Kind of a select handful of things that Tatum Bethune participated in, but Kalen DeLoach here, 40-yard dash. Let's take a look at his right here, which I think going back to that Clemson game, you could probably see the speed a little bit, but how fast he can move east to west on the field. We saw that throughout his career at FSU, just because too, he's not the biggest size linebacker too. So one thing he's got to take advantage of is his speed. And this is what he put together at the 40. First run was a 4.55. And then unofficially for his second run, he ran a 4.47. Thoughts on D-Lo here, man. I thought he had at least on field and then also to the 40-yard dash. I thought that he did a good job for himself up there in Indy. Maybe measurements is going to be something that will hurt him a tad bit, but other than that, he showed what he needed to show, and that speed is ridiculous. Good for him on the 40.
Like you said, I think the knock comes in his measurements. Came in sub 6 foot, 5'11", 5'11" and 4'8", so about half-inch off from being 6 foot. Did come in at 210 pounds, so that's up from that weight that we had for the East West Shrine Bowl. So I mean, that's at least a little bit of a positive development. So with those measurements, he really needed to show well in that athletic testing with the 4.47 40-yard dash, number 2 among linebackers. I thought he was able to do just that, and had some moments in the on-field drills as well. So when you couple that with the production and the way that he was able to continue to improve year after year at Florida State, I think there's still some really positive stuff about him as he moves into the NFL level.
Yeah, I think his size is really going to hurt him. I wouldn't be surprised to see some teams maybe try to see if he wants to play safety. He runs quick enough in the 4.4s, and at 5'11", 210. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where teams are leaning. But it doesn't help that his vertical jump's only 30 inches. I thought he could have had a better showing there. His size, and we'll talk about it with Tatum too, but the size of FSU's linebackers, I think, is going to hurt him when it comes draft time to see whether or not they get drafted. I think it's really up in the air for those two right now.
Yeah, let's jump over to Tatum Bethune too, because didn't participate in a lot of things except for going over there and doing the bench press, which he recorded 16 reps. Another guy too that was dealing with injury or surgery too, so recovering there and might be saving some things for the pro day. Probably a handful of these guys will be doing a lot more at pro day. We're seeing that kind of becoming a big trend anyways. But definitely for some guys still dealing with some injuries from this past season. A lot of those guys playing with injuries in the season had to do some cleanup stuff and get some surgery. But Tatum Bethune came in 5'11" and a half and then 229 pounds. But those are the two linebackers that were performing up there for Florida State. Thoughts on Bethune?
Yeah, another one where measurements are really going to hurt him here. And, we didn't get to see him take part in the athletic testing, but another one where I thought, up and down in some of that field work. And it's going to be important now to get to Florida State's pro day, and hopefully he's able to run that 40 and do some of that other athletic testing, because that was one of the main reasons that he missed the Orange Bowl. Underwent a procedure there, a lower body procedure, sometimes towards the end of the season, and might not have been quite 100% yet to do these drills at the combine, but still has another, 3 or 4 weeks until Florida State's pro day, and hopefully we'll be able to participate then.
And if we go back to the relative athletic scores that Dustin was talking about earlier, 9 of these guys that FSU had did enough to qualify for these scores. Kalen was very clearly the lowest rated of the guys, just under the 6s. Everybody else was 8.5 and up, basically. But a lot of that was due to his size. With Tatum, it's he didn't really do enough to make me go one way or the other with how I should feel about his combine performance. He just didn't really do enough, and I think the pro day is going to matter a lot for how the draft's going to go for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah giving some love though to D'Lo, saying Kalen DeLoach, he's had a day, he's rolling. So impressed the broadcast crew there, and definitely if you're talking about Daniel Jeremiah, one of the top NFL draft analysts, showing some love there to D'Lo. So I was pretty impressed from what he was putting out there on the field up there in Indy. Up next, we're about to go to some speed here, but before we go to that, though, I want to bring up some Jordan Travis stuff. He was there, gave interviews, as we know, still recovering from his surgery as well. Big health update, though. He told the media that he will be hopefully, 100% back on the field, everything going right for him, May-June area range for him. So definitely, of course, well after the NFL draft, but you're talking about getting around that range for where he can get to some mini camps and stuff, or whichever team elects to draft him. But that's some good news there. And also too, Trey Benson talked about him as well. They got to see each other for the first time in a while. They say they catch up all the time over text on a day-to-day basis, but said he almost teared up when he saw Jordan Travis out of that boot. So some really good progress there for Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis also too telling the media that he's really excited about Florida State next year and watching them win a lot of games. But some good stuff there about Jordan Travis, just because we didn't get to see him perform there. But obviously he did get to meet with some teams. He says he's probably met with about all 32 of them all throughout this kind of off season, going into the combine. So a lot of teams interested in QB1. A lot of teams already do their due diligence and do their homework anyways. But, Jordan Travis, there's some quarterbacks that we've seen in past years that, don't get drafted so early, but end up getting a chance to start, and maybe just getting the chance is something that Jordan Travis can take advantage of. But some good stuff there from J Trav in the latest update.
Yeah, even though he wasn't able to participate, still good to hear that he's still on that similar recovery track that he kind of talked about back
you gotta
during
control what you can control. I've learned that throughout my life and throughout my career.
All right.
So, I just try to keep my head down, try not to listen to the outside noise.
It's really
this
loud.
Florida State team was really special.
It is.
I don't hear anything.
Oh, it's pretty loud.
No, I don't hear anything.
Jordan Travis cut me off.
Oh no.
But it's good to hear he's on that recovery track, back like what we heard during the East-West Shrine Bowl. He was talking about the May-June timeline. It seems like he's going to be able to be back and able to participate by the time teams start training camp there towards the end of the summer. And man, even though Jordan wasn't able to participate, it does sound like he's on some NFL radars, and I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone when some team ends up picking him in that back half of the draft. I think, 6th, 7th round area. Maybe he gets up there into the 5th if someone's really impressed with his medicals and the way he's coming along. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to end up getting selected.
I agree. I don't think there's anything really more to add on other than I love how his NFL combine number was still number 13, which just goes by alphabetical order for the
I know, right?
position groups. Just thought it was pretty fitting.
Yeah.
Also, what's up with some of these questions, though?
Some of these questions I've seen have been out of pocket. Like the NFL is just giving credentials to anybody, apparently.
Who was at these like someone in this J-Trav scrum was just screaming at him like, Jordan, what was your injury? What? Just screaming it at him over and over again until he finally answered. And then there was also, I was watching Keon's, and someone was asking him, do you think airplanes are real?
A lot of people got asked if birds are real. That was the responses for that were pretty funny. And then there was Roma Dunze who was asked if he could land a plane in an emergency situation, and he said, absolutely not. We're all going to die. That was pretty funny.
That was good.
I think it was the same guy probably who asked Keon if airplanes are real. But
we traveled all the way to Indianapolis to ask about birds and fucking planes.
What are we doing, man?
What are we doing? We're not dialed. But I guess it creates for you to get some good engagement. I saw Caleb Williams, the first question that he gets nailed with is, are you scared to compete, or you just don't want to compete or whatever, and just yells at him, hey, what are we doing?
The way he asked it was like, come on, man, you're better than that.
Yeah.
At least I would hope so, but
no, makes us look like we're friggin' fun. We are fools, but makes us look even more like fools. But yeah, but the good stuff. I like hearing the update from J Trav. It seems like rehab is going well for him. He's been posting some stuff on his socials, keeping everybody up to date on how things are going for him. So it'll be huge once we start getting some footage of him getting out there, getting some cleats on him, being able to run will be massive. Interested to see what that timeline looks, but he had those meetings with a lot of those teams, had to go through all that medical stuff as well. So they got the answers that they need. And it seems like from the previous update that we had from J Trav a little while back, though, things were looking good and heading in the right direction. Speed time. And we're going to go to someone that was just on the show with us not too long ago. And we're going to go over to Jarrian Jones. Jarrian Jones, man. He told us he told us in the production meeting, man. He told us beforehand. I thought we had asked him on the show, but I went back and looked back, but he didn't say it on there. But he said he was going to run that 4.3 range, and I was like, damn, for real?
Because the way he worded it before the show, he's like, I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret, because he didn't want to tell everybody. He's like, I ran 4.48 with no testing or with no training. I think I can get in the 4.3s, and sure enough, I didn't think he was going to get there. I thought he was going to get like 4.42 maybe, but he flew.
Dude, he did fly. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen, but an official 4.38 for Jarrian Jones, man. I'm so excited and happy for him. If you guys haven't yet, I'm just going to keep on telling everybody, go back and listen to that interview. He gave us 45 minutes of just good shit. But here's Jarrian Jones, 4.38. Indianapolis.
Jarrian Jones. It's going to be
Moving.
Jarrian Jones. It's going to be
Moving, man.
Jarrian Jones.
Bye-bye.
It's going to be
I did not think that was going to happen. I did not
No.
have that on my bingo card at all. I thought he was just messing with us and maybe doing some, just on the stopwatch, doing his camp right now with training. But he held his word, man. Held his word. 4.38 from Jarrian Jones. I'll bring up Renardo Green here in a minute, but I thought Jarrian Jones had a really nice Indianapolis NFL scouting combine for himself. And a lot of people overlook Jarrian. They still kind of do. Maybe this kind of gave them a little bit of an alert, a little bit of a notice here on what he's like. And dude, if you just go back to the numbers of his last 2 years at Florida State, shouldn't be too much of a shock, but just to add this on to the athleticism he showed, I'm sure was huge. And I just know he probably killed the team interviews as well, just knowing him and his personality.
Yeah, I think nice showing is putting it a little lightly because Jarrian Jones, I mean, just a dominant outing out there in the athletic testing. Not only the 4.3840, which was tied for 5th among cornerbacks, but also a 39.5-inch vertical, 10-foot, 9-inch broad jump. And we go back to that RAS score that I was talking about earlier. Jarrian Jones comes in number 30 out of 2,222 cornerbacks from 1987 to 2024. So, I mean, just a fantastic outing for him at the combine. Looked good in the drills as well. And, he's another one that is absolutely soaring on draft boards, I think, after what he was able to do in Indianapolis and the film that he put out during this final season at Florida State, where he was one of the best cornerbacks in college football. And I think it's pretty simple at this point. Come on here, the spear, and your draft stock is going to go up. And
he came in at just a hair under 6 foot, so you combine that with that vertical and that speed. A lot of people think he's just bound to be a nickel corner in the NFL, which he could be very good at, but I don't see any reason he can't be an outside corner as well with that speed and size.
His size was really good, 5'11" and 7'8", so just a hair under 6 foot and 190 pounds. 190 pounds, 4.38.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Good for Jarrian, man.
Wait till we talk about Trey Benson's, because just a hair slower than Jarrian and I need to look it up. 216. 216.
Yes. Unbelievable.
Yeah, Trey, we'll talk about it in a second, but Trey definitely did trim up, man, from what he played with last year, too. But yeah, shout out Jarrian, man. That kid's awesome. And he's going to end up doing another interview with a new podcast that we're launching under our network with Emily Peters. I didn't know that. I just break that, but
yeah, I haven't been told this.
Yeah, but he's going to be joining her on, I believe, I think it's her first episode, actually. So outside of her introductory one. So that one's going to be awesome. And she's got a lot of great questions. It's perfect timing. He can go back and recap the combine with her. So that'll be awesome for everybody to go listen to. Renardo Green, 4.49 for him.
Perfect time.
10-yard split was 1.53. Broad jump 10-10. Vertical jump is a 37.5. Thoughts on Renardo Green? Over the announcers gave a lot of love to him. They talked about the LSU games and him being locked down on a lot of those star wide receivers for LSU. But I thought these two DBs did more than I had even kind of thought of. These guys really put on a nice showing up there in Indianapolis.
Jarrian kind of stole the show, but Renardo was also very good at the combine, putting up some good athletic testing numbers, doing pretty solid in the on-field drills. And I think both these guys, they're both in a very good range right now to get drafted. Jarrian in that top 100, and I think Renardo is absolutely going to be off the board by the end of the fourth.
Yeah,
I think he might go earlier than that because teams love press man corners, and Renardo's one of the best in the draft at it. Put up a pretty good time at 4.49. I think that's exactly what he needed. None of us ever thought he was going to be a burner, but he at least had to show that he had the speed to keep up with NFL receivers. 4.49 is perfect. I thought he did exactly what he needed to do to maybe sneak into that late third round.
Just seems like he's flown under the radar a little bit, but I mean, you are right. If teams look at what he was able to do against LSU and then combine that with the athletic scores that he put up in Indianapolis, there might be some teams that really fall in love with his skill set.
I mean, Lance Zierlein with NFL.com has him as FSU's second best prospect, so not everybody's sleeping on him.
Renardo just put up some tape too. But I just thought on the field, I thought Jarrian looked really good.
Yeah.
In the drills, along with Renardo, they just look clean. And shout out to Coach Surtain, man. A lot of those things they do in practice, anyways. But just for them to relay that up there in Indy, I just thought they looked really, really tight, good on the line too, on a few of those drills. Really polished. So yeah, I think those guys did very well from themselves and probably jolted them up a little bit too. And
I'm still mad Akeem Dent didn't get an invite. Like,
yeah,
he would have put on a good show as well.
Yeah, he would have too. Speed. Akeem Dent's very fast as well. Yeah, we're just talking about him, but let's bring up Trey Benson here. We'll start off with his 40. Yeah. This was wild. I was not.
I did not expect this, man.
No.
I wasn't far off.
I don't know why wouldn't we expect it kind of, though? He shows us on the field. We're like, there's no way he's about to beat that deep. Oh, and he's beating the DB. Oh, he's gone. There's a 70-yard touchdown from Trey Benson. That's. But then when you shave it out, when you shave off those pounds down to 216, you're like, okay, but not 4.39 level. Here we go, Trey Benson.
Just cruising. And I want to say I said a few weeks ago I thought he could get low 4.4s, so I wasn't too far off with him getting 4.39. He just, at that size, at over 6 foot, 220 pounds, let's just round up because that's probably what he's going to play at in the NFL. And running the 4.3s, he's absolutely entered that RB1 conversation, especially because Texas's Jonathan Brooks is recovering from an ACL. I think Benson's absolutely in that conversation to be the first back off the board. Plus, you have to talk about his ball security as well. No fumbles in his career at Florida State.
Yeah, takes care of the ball very nicely. Just freak athlete. And, he puts together what he has on the film and games, add this to what he did here. I tweeted top 2 back confirmed. It's over. Depends on really now what a room thinks about him on draft day, if they're going to end up taking him as being the first running back off the board. But that would be a huge shout out to Coach Yak too. Got to give credit there where credit's due. He's done a really good job with Trey Benson, making sure that he fit that scheme well, and the offense, of course, there too with Norvell and Coach Atkins. But specifically, though, Coach Yak needs a lot of more love. I think Coach Yak was also there in attendance too, whenever Trey Benson was going through his workouts as well. But whenever you shave off some of those pounds, he looks like he's in great shape, gentlemen.
It was unreal to see Trey Benson run at that speed, at that weight. I mean, it's unbelievable. Speaks to the freak he is. And you guys have to think, I mean, you go back, he had a really bad knee injury in high school. He had a really bad knee injury at Oregon and is still able to go out there and run a 4.39. As long as his medical's checked out and everything with what he was able to do on the field and in drills, I think he's absolutely going to be a top 2 running back. And it's not going to surprise me if he is the first running back that comes off the board. But, man, Trey Benson, you knew he was fast on the football field, but I thought maybe it was more game speed than track speed. But He just looks like a natural right there running the 40. I mean, he looks like he's been running track his entire life.
Yeah. You also have to throw in a 10'2" broad jump, which there's a lot of athletic running backs in this draft, and I think that ended up coming in 7th or 8th as far as broad jumps. That's still insanely impressive for a running back to have a 10-foot broad jump.
Yeah, 100%. Just crazy. I mean, he was one of the ones I was highlighting going into this combine anyways, of just the freakish athlete that he is. But really interested to see, man. I want to look at some of these mocks. We'll have a whole new round of mocks on Monday. So from a lot of the national outlets that we'll probably go jump into on Wednesday night's show and get some updated ones. And I think we're going to see some risers from Florida State football players.
Yeah, and just as of right now, if we go back to that mock draft database, him, Jonathan Brooks, and Blake Corum are all in that 60 to 65 range. Wouldn't be surprised to see that change just slightly this week.
And I was just going to add on Benson, the relative athletic score for him. He came in at 40 out of 1,745 running backs from 1987 to 2024. So, I mean, that athleticism was reflected.
Yeah, 9.77 scores. Pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. Probably so.
And the crazy thing was he was 4th out of Florida State players.
That's crazy. That's wild. Who should we bring up next? Chronologically wise, I guess we got Jaheim here. Going to him, his 40 was a 4.61. Going to it, just add that with his size though, and what he came in as. He was listed at 241 pounds, 6'2", 10-yard split, 1.58, vertical jump at 35, and broad jump at 10.4. Got a big score there on his athleticism, but thoughts on Jaheim Bell here, man. I'm going to bring up a couple clips of him, but thoughts on Jaheim Bell?
Tied for the third fastest 40 time among tight ends, tied for number 4 in the vertical, number 3 in the broad jump. So, I mean, he really came out and put himself there at the top of his position group. And I think every NFL team knows, when you draft Jaheim Bell, you're not taking a traditional tight end. You're really taking a flex guy and someone that can go out there and be a receiving threat. And he was able to show that with his athleticism. And you can see him right here going through the gauntlet drill. I think he had one drop, but I mean, overall, a pretty solid showing. And Jaheim Bell, another guy from Florida State, Braden Fiske went to the Senior Bowl and improved his stock. Jaheim Bell had a pretty good showing there as well, and then now carries that into the combine. And, I think teams are talking about him as someone moving up on boards.
Yeah, I thought he ran really well. I think his size at 6'2" is going to hinder him slightly, even if he's going to be a flex player. Teams just like their tight ends at that 6'4", 6'5" range. So we'll see if that ends up impacting him. I still think he's probably a mid-day 3 guy, like a 5th round pick. I don't think he's done anything to really change that, in my opinion.
One thing highlight from Jaheim Bell, though, a nasty one-handed grab, which if Coach Yak was still in, here it is, one-handed snag. I know a lot of you are listening on the audio side, so y'all might want to flip over to the video side for this week's episode. But here's Jaheim Bell with a nasty one-handed grab. 2 feet down, by the way, Rich Eisen. Just letting him know. They said in the commentary, and Daniel Jeremiah didn't. They both elected that they didn't think he got his feet down. He 100% got both feet down, held onto that ball very nicely, as well as it was overthrown. But yeah, freaky athletic dude, man. He's a stud. And it's just interesting to see where tight ends have jumped so much in the last couple of years for offenses and how they utilize them. And I'm just wondering how that's been that way since we were talking about Jaheim Bell adding on to this Mike Norvell offense, what they were going to do with them. And I think there was some times where they just had so many playmakers all around to where you just couldn't designate your offense around Jaheim Bell. And I'm interested to see what team can work with him and his athleticism, because you're not going to rely on him to be a blocker. You're going to want to utilize his athleticism and put him out in open space. We'll see. I try to think of Debo's obviously thinner guy, less weight, everything like that, but a smart offensive coordinator might be able to put something around that kind of scheme for Jaheim Bell.
Yeah, well, sadly, a lot of offensive coordinators aren't very smart. So he's gonna it's really gonna be team dependent on him. Like if he ends up in San Francisco somehow, perfect. If he ends up in Chicago, his career's over. So let's hope he goes to a smart franchise.
And I think we have to remember a big reason that Jaheim decided not to play in that Orange Bowl, same thing with Braden Fiske, is because they just weren't quite healthy after getting banged up throughout the year at Florida State. And Jaheim in particular, really limited during the second half of the season. So to have that time off ahead of the Senior Bowl and the NFL Combine, I think now you're really seeing that resurgence of him getting back to full health and able to showcase the real athlete that he is.
And then we go over to 2 more freak athletes as we saw perform yesterday with Keon Coleman, and Johnny Wilson. We kind of knew, what we have with Johnny Wilson. Knew that since he arrived at Florida State. But then you go over, you only have 1 year of Keon Coleman. I think we'll start off with number 1, which was a lot of chatter right off the bat until we got to the gauntlet drill, which we'll bring up here in a second. But Keon Coleman, 4.61 official on the 40-yard dash. Thoughts on that, guys, as we kind of transition into that gauntlet drill where he went over 20 miles per hour, being one of the fastest in the wide receiver room at that drill, which is really impressive. But a 4.61 official, and we know how Twitter and the rivals thought about it.
Certainly a disappointing time, and I'm thinking Keon was expecting to run a little bit faster as well, and ended up finishing, I think, the second worst among the wide receivers participating at the NFL Combine. But I think everyone knows that Keon Coleman isn't a burner receiver, but I mean, he is someone that goes out there and just produces every Saturday. And if anyone's questioning the speed that he plays with on the football field, I would just remind you to go back and watch the LSU game, watch the Clemson game, go watch his punt return against Florida in the regular season finale. There were plenty of times where Keon Coleman showed that he can move wherever he wants to on the football field, whether it's with a 4.4 or a 4.6. But yeah, then you really got to see it when he got out there in the gauntlet, record the fastest time of any wide receiver going through the drill. And I think it just shows, he had an absurdly low drop rate while he was at Florida State last year. And I think that's reflected in that gauntlet drill, really seeing how confident he is with his hands to not slow down. I mean, just move through that in a straight line, got over 20 miles per hour. So the 40-yard dash, you can use as a little bit of a detractor on Keon, but that's not the full picture of the story whatsoever.
Yeah, I was really surprised with this time. I thought he was going to be, at worst in the mid 4.5s. To see him in the 4.6 was pretty surprising. But, as Daniel Jeremiah was saying, it's just not his game. He's a pure jump ball receiver that's got great hands, and, he's going to be mainly a red zone target early on in his career. And like Dustin was saying, he reflected that in the gauntlet drill. He did really well in some of the drills. I thought his route running on a couple of them could have been refined better, especially on the sail route. But he did what he needed to do. I thought he could have gotten to the 40-inch vertical mark. He ended up at the 38. I think he could get 40 if he wanted to.
20.1 miles per hour on the gauntlet drill here and staying really tight to that line as well. He ran so damn fast that the QB couldn't keep up there at the end and had to throw the ball near the damn sideline, almost hit the media and the cameras. camera guys over here. But just super speed, just compared though to, look at this line compared to Oregon's Franklin, and then you look at over here on Keon and how tight he stayed on this line. I thought was really, really impressive at that speed. Like, I can't get any better than that. And two, I think the thing for him, what does this do? Is he going to be a late first rounder, or is he going to go on the second day? That's going to be something that we're going to be keeping a really close eye on. Is he a first rounder, or is he an early second rounder? What do you guys project after this combine for Keon?
We'll see what the pro day looks like. It seems like the last couple of weeks, Keon's been kind of in the mix between that 4th to 6th wide receiver off the board when you're looking at the variety of mock drafts going around. Some have him in that 25 to 32 pick range. Some he kind of dips over into the second round. I'm guessing as of now, after this weekend, he's more of in the upper second round pick range at this point for teams. But, we'll see what he decides to do on pro day. And I don't think you can overlook his body of work either.
It's going to be interesting because there's a ton of teams that need receivers. I mean, if we just start from pick 22, you have Dallas at 24 who needs a receiver. You could argue Houston at 23 needs a receiver. Tampa, if they lose Mike Evans, Buffalo, Kansas City, then coming into the second round, Carolina, New England, Arizona, the Chargers, all these teams need a receiver. The Giants at 39. I am curious to see if that 40 time is going to impact him, because if you look at a guy like Devontae Adams, who came out about a decade ago, ran a similar time, ended up going in the 50s. And, coming out of college, kind of had that same kind of play style. Was a little bit shorter at 6'1". I wouldn't be surprised to see Keon fall into that mid-second round just because there's so many good receivers this year. very clearly the strongest position in this draft, and maybe Keon's just not a certain team's cup of tea.
Yeah, and then like Al's saying here on YouTube, still got a pro day. There's some things that these guys can clean up, and you got a good amount of time too to help enhance and improve some numbers. And if Keon can shave off a little bit there, that would be huge for him as well. But yeah, you're exactly right there. It's going to depend too on how quickly these wide receivers get taken, and they're going to get taken really quickly in this year's draft for some of these teams that need more at that position. D'Lo, it's going to be fun pro day. I might have to come up to Tallahassee for that one, man. This one might actually be worth it to be at, standing all the way across the field. Not that fun, I will say.
I still don't think it's going to be worth it, but there will be more people there.
The thing is, you can't get a good time.
The only reason Logan's going to go is because Mike Tomlin might be there.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely going to be there. Braden Fiske, Jared Verse.
There will be some NFL personnel in the house for sure, but it just sucks. We can't take any videos, any photos, blah.
We can't even really take a good 40 time because we're looking at it vertically.
Yeah, we're behind a fence for some reason. I mean, come on. Figure it out.
We got to get it together. Give me a better spot. I just want to get the stopwatch out, man. I want to get it out. I think you and I, though, were clocking some people like 2 seconds behind.
I tried, and then
it ain't worth it.
I forget who it was last year. Maybe it was Jamie, or maybe it was Ontario Wilson. And I tried to do it, and I got like a 6-1. I'm like, I don't think that's right.
From Pokey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not happening. Yeah, you don't really get it. You don't even really get to report too much of a time either, because you're just going off of what you just did, and you're like, well, I also don't want to screw over anybody by putting some damn awful number out. So the only thing you can really get from is like a scout saying something, or a coach, whoever got the number down. But everybody kind of keeps that to themselves sometimes a little bit. But yeah, big pro day coming up for some Florida State Seminoles. But before we wrap up, Johnny Wilson, big Johnny Wilson, man. What did he come in size wise?
6'6" and was it
3'8"?
5'8"?
3'8", 231 pounds.
Yeah. So here's his 40.
Believe he was the tallest wide receiver to ever measure in at the NFL Combine, second to Darren Waller, who was obviously eventually converted to a tight end.
Yep. Here's Johnny Wilson running the 40.
Which that ended up being brought. His unofficial was 4.53, ended up being brought down to a 4.52. 4.52 at 6'7" in cleats. Let's just call it insane. Like, that was, of all the times we saw this weekend, this one surprised me the most. I would have thought he ran in the 4.6s, not Keon. So for Wilson to come in at 4.52 at that size, unbelievable.
Freak. That's what they call a freak.
And he did well in the gauntlet drill as well. I don't think he had any drops. That could be wrong. And obviously that's going to be the biggest question mark was with him. Had a very high drop rate. I thought he had a very impressive showing this weekend. I really did.
Here he is in the gauntlet drill.
I don't recall him
line as well.
I don't recall him dropping anything during the on-field drills that I was watching. And
he made some tough catches.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that's the biggest question with Johnny Wilson is, are his hands going to consistently be there? And from this showing, he did himself some positives. Didn't always see that at the Senior Bowl. And I think, that was probably on his mind coming into this, wanted to put on a good showing in front of all these NFL personnel. And he absolutely did that. And then you go and look at the athletic testing, and not only with the 4.52 40 at his size, but also a 37-inch vertical and a 10-foot 8-inch broad jump and a 4.11 second shuttle time, which was number 4 among receivers, but is just nuts for his size.
That shuttle time alone is going to end any of the tight end conversion stuff that we've kind of been hearing over the last month or so. With that speed and that shuttle time, I'm pretty sure he's going to be a receiver at the next level, at least for the first couple of years.
And he set the combine record for wingspan for receiver.
Oh, yeah. It was over 7 foot. Absurd.
So someone's going to fall in love with Johnny Wilson. I mean, there's too many qualities that you can't teach that he brings to the table. And it's hard to see him making it out of the top 100 as well.
Yeah, he'll be a quarterback's favorite. He will. We saw it those 2 years at Florida State. We saw it in practice. Saw J-Trav going to him all the time. That range is just absolutely nuts. And two, when you go to the NFL, teams, when they get in that red zone, they want to score. So go to the Buccaneers here in Tampa.
I was just about to say he feels like a Buck. He just has that feel to him. And look at the draft they got to pick towards the end of the third round at 89. I think that'd be a good fit.
Yeah, I think Baker would like going to him. I think that would work. As figure out what's going on here with Mike Evans. I think the Bucs still want to keep him here no matter what. But still, there's some teams interested in Mike, as they should be. One of the best to do it right now in the wide receiver room. But adding some more in the too, I think they still are interested in adding some more talent there, anyways. But just depends on where Johnny is available wise for some of these teams. But Keon has been talked about a ton too, and a lot of boards here in Tampa Bay for the Bucs as well. So I just need a Nole, man, and Trey Benson too has been talked a lot too, with adding him along with Rashad White and the Bay. So all I'm doing here, I'm doing some recruiting. I need a Nole in the locker room. I got to start building my NFL sources. We got some things to do. So we go into year 3 covering the Bucs. So just need someone to do it. Jason Light, let's get it done. Or if we got to go to Pittsburgh, we go to Pittsburgh. We'll see what we got to do. But yeah, Joe, man, any other thoughts? We saw NFL Combine 40 record. Xavier Worthy for 4.21. Congrats to him, man. That is friggin' fast.
It's always fun watching someone when they break a combine record like that.
Yep.
He was flying too, and he saw the time that he just ran around the entire field. He just kept running at full speed. I thought that was pretty cool.
D-Lou, what do you think you'd run in the 40?
Probably like a 7.8.
7.8. Are you pulling up any? You pulling up at like the 25?
I think I'd blow my Achilles like about 28 yards in, give or take, and have to limp to the finish line.
There was one of the offensive linemen today. I don't know who it was because I had it on a side screen. He pulled his hamstring at the 25-yard mark. I'm like, oh man, I felt so bad.
Yeah, that's got to blow. There was a question here about Johnny Wilson if finishing the drills. I didn't get to watch specifically yesterday fully. Were y'all seeing? I think he's fine.
I think he finished the drills.
Okay.
I don't know if I dialed into that specific, but
yeah,
he was going through the ones that I was watching.
You have to keep in mind FSU basketball was on yesterday, and after they lost, I had to sulk for a little bit. So I wasn't exactly watching.
Yeah. But yeah, man, dude, I love the combine. It's almost like Christmas Day for me. I know it's the same for you guys, but it's just super fun. Definitely when you've got all these FSU guys up there and you give it a full on excuse to just sit back, relax, get to put out some tweets and just watch these guys dominate. And a lot of these guys help their draft stock. And there's still some guys too that maybe they want to clean up some things. Guess what? You can do that in pro day. Some guys still got some big testing to do with some numbers as well in the 40-yard dash that we'll see. But I think for a few guys, though, they've certified a few things. They don't have to do much on pro day, and they can just do some talking and have some meetings with a few teams and scouts. Don't really need to show much more, but interested to see if Keon Coleman decides to do the 40. Again, that's something I'd be monitoring going into pro day. We have that date too, right, D-Lou?
I have it, but I don't have it.
I got it. I think I got it. I tweeted it. But
yeah,
where's it at?
It is Friday, March 22nd.
March 22nd. So,
and also we'll get to mention it on the podcast on Wednesday again, but we will have an open tour of duty showing this upcoming Thursday, March 7th.
Ooh.
So not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, we'll get to talk some TOD.
I won't be here. I'll be off the grid. I have a week off from the show then. Maybe D-Lou, I think a good idea for you is whoever's you're with or something, do a little video recap or something like that. Maybe something would be good and we can upload that on YouTube.
We're probably not doing that at 6 a.m.
Stop doing that.
We're probably not doing that, but we'll definitely take some notes.
You heard it here first. Hey, chat, subscribers, D-Lou's not giving y'all a scoop. He's saving it. 2 weeks from now, you have to hear about the or you can hear it from his recap. He'll have a recap out there for you, I'm sure.
I don't like to get on video before 9 a.m. on a weekday because it's not good for
I'm
anybody.
scared what you look like.
I'm scared of what other people are going to see what I look like.
Yeah, I've seen it early before. It's very scary.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
So we don't want that.
VZ, do you want to run us through some quick NBA updates from some stars that are out indefinitely?
Yeah, it was a busy week for some NBA Noles. Patrick Williams is out for the season with a stress fracture in his left foot. He hadn't played since late January. They had initially called it a bone marrow issue. Then some further imaging revealed that it's a stress fracture. He's having to have surgery. Sucks for Pat, especially in a contract year where he's trying to get a pretty big contract, if we're to believe the rumors from the preseason. It's going to be a little bit tough heading into the offseason where he hasn't really made any progress statistically. We'll see what kind of contract he can get. Scotty Barnes just broke a bone in his hand. What was that, 2 nights ago? Against the Warriors. He's out indefinitely, probably out for the season, if we had to guess. Some better news, Trent Forrest on a full contract with the Atlanta Hawks. Raekwon Gray got a 2-way contract with the Spurs. And then arguably the biggest news, former Nole and ACC champion Jeff Peterson has become the general manager or director of basketball operations for the Charlotte Hornets at just 35 years old, really young for an NBA executive. Is that quick enough?
I think it was beautiful. I thought
I think
it was
I got
great.
it all.
Yeah, that was gorgeous. You want to bring up any FSU current basketball? Any?
Or
maybe
the NC State game Tuesday was fun. That's all I got.
Anything outside of that?
Yesterday sucked. Yesterday was not fun. Because they can't win in Atlanta and they can't win in Pittsburgh either, which they play there on Tuesday. 2 games left in the regular season, then they go to DC for the ACC tournament, and that'll probably it for the season. We'll see.
We'll see. Who knows, right? Who knows? What
anything can happen, especially in this year's ACC where the whole league is just crap. Anything can happen next week.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Like I said, y'all are going to see us just in a few days on Wednesday evening as we look ahead into some spring camp stuff. I think we'll be previewing into some offense. So we'll have a jam-packed show for you guys on Wednesday. And then next week, we won't have an episode. It's spring break. I won't be here. So I'm going to have a week off. And then we're flying into spring football. We're already here, man. It's wild. But we've got a lot to talk about, and we'll be mixing that in with hearing some mock drafts after what the Florida State Seminoles did up there in Indianapolis this past week. But as always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, before you leave, hit that like button, share with your friends, subscribe so you get notified every time release a new episode. That's going to do it. We got a guest on Wednesday night's episode 2. So one of those guys that performed and put on a nice showing as well will be joining us on Wednesday evening. A fan favorite. I really became a big fan favorite after the Orange Bowl with him. But I think a lot of FSU fans are going to love this one. So make sure you guys are ready prime at 7 o'clock with our special guest. But everybody have a great rest of y'all's Sunday. Have a great start to your week, and we'll see y'all just in a few days on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Peace.